41. Although the new mythical life could be considered a combination of the life and wisdom authorities, it did not surpass the previous two but rather existed in parallel. Its authority was dream and illusion, or simply put, the dream world. A power born from the life and wisdom authorities, yet entirely different. Rebluchia's authority possessed an ability akin to mind reading, capable of materializing thoughts into a supernatural power resembling psychic force. This newly born mythical life could neither read minds nor materialize the power of thought into psychic force, but it could create dreams and invade the dreams of others. Shelley's authority possessed the power to create life and attain immortality, able to freely change her form and even vary in size. Naturally, it could not achieve immortality, but its lifespan far exceeded that of the trilobite men. Its body, like Shelley's, was equally wondrous, possessing the power to traverse between the dream world and reality. Yin Shen took out the sun cup, and it automatically unfurled its flower bud. The head within the flower cup slowly opened its eyes and yawned. Then, it saw Yin Shen. Instantly, it felt unwell. It retracted its head back into the flower cup, which also attempted to close. But Yin Shen extended his hand, and it could no longer move. Yin Shen transmitted the language of the Yinsai kingdom into its mind through the wisdom authority and began to communicate with it. Who are you? The sun cup looked up at Yin Shen with a puzzled expression. Who am I? Yin Shen could sense it rapidly familiarizing itself with the knowledge and language he had imparted to it. Has anyone given you a name before? Or would you like to choose one for yourself? The sun cup glanced at its surroundings, cowering as it looked at Yin Shen. Then, who are you? Yin Shen chuckled. They all call me God. If you'd like, you can call me that too. The sun cup still didn't quite understand. What is God? It wasn't the first time Yin Shen had heard this question, probably a being with immense power, so immense that mortals can hardly comprehend it. Yin Shen's explanation greatly appealed to this newborn mythical creature. Then I want to be called God too. The stem of the sun cup swayed. Just moments ago, it had been afraid, but now it was instantly lost in its imagination. It seemed that choosing a powerful name was extremely important to it, making it feel incredibly excited. I'll be called Flower God. No, I'll be called Sun God. Or I could be called Illusion God or Dream God. Its thoughts were erratic, lacking consistency. Yin Shen looked at it and said, God is just a title, not a name. When you possess power that surpasses everything, the name, God, will be bestowed upon you by others. The head within the sun cup glanced at Yin Shen, then lowered its gaze to look at itself. It felt very weak. The title of God probably had nothing to do with it, no matter what. This made it somewhat dejected. Yin Shen noticed its dejection and spoke to guide it in choosing a name for itself. I also know a sun god. His name is Apollo, but aside from possessing the same golden color as the sun, you have nothing else in common with the sun. The sun cup was provoked and became unhappy. What Apollo? It doesn't sound good at all. Yin Shen said to this somewhat childish new mythical life, then what do you plan to call yourself? The sun cup raised its head. I've decided. I'll be called Polo. Yin Shen. Pineapple. The small head within the flower cup seemed to detect Yin Shen's teasing. It's Polo. On the steps outside the temple. Polo wobbled as he walked downwards. His roots weren't any slower than legs when moving, but he felt it still wasn't fast enough. He looked at the steep steps and suddenly had an idea. He flipped the giant flower cup over, and it turned into a shimmering golden robe, concealing the flower stem and roots of his lower body. Wearing the robe with only his head exposed, he looked like a child in clothing. Then, with a leap, he soared from the heights, gliding downwards. The shimmering golden robe fluttered in the wind as he descended. Woohoo! Watch me ride the wind. He. In the valley, he passed through the ruined city and wandered through the marshes. His trunk was hidden by the robe, so his movement didn't resemble running but rather gliding across the ground like a snake or a ghost. He could vanish from the real world at any time and jump into his own dream world. He was a being that existed between reality and dreams. He happily roamed the realm of the gods, the garden of Yin Shen. Life on the island wasn't particularly interesting, but it was quite pleasant. However, Polo was clearly not a child content with solitude. Unlike Yin Shen and Shelley, he possessed a strong curiosity and loved and yearned for the novel things in the outside world. He stood on the beach, gazing and pondering about the distant reaches of the sea. At last, he came before God. Oh, great and divine one. He twisted and fidgeted, as if making an embarrassing request. After spending so much time together, he was no longer as afraid of Yin Shen. God didn't even need to look at him to discern his thoughts. Is the temple not good enough? Or is this island not big enough? Besides, is the outside world necessarily better than here? Polo shook his head. God. Although it's good here, it's unchanging, just like you, the great God, eternal and grand. The outside world can't compare to your realm, but the outside world is constantly changing. Polo's eyes revealed a yearning. In the world beyond, every day brings new people and new things. Every dawn is different, and every person and city has a fresh story. Polo circled around God's feet like a child, pleading with him. At the same time, he said somewhat coyly, "Oh, God, why don't you venture into the outside world? It's so interesting and lively there." Yin Shen was clearly not swayed by Polo's words. "I don't like noise." Polo cautiously asked, "Is it because you can't truly descend into this world?" Yin Shen's gaze fell, and Polo immediately knelt on the ground, trembling. "How do you know?" Polo shivered and said, "I learned it from Shelley." Yin Shen. Shelley couldn't possibly have told you. Although somewhat afraid, Polo was still proud of his actions. "I saw it in Shelley's dream." This was a little devil. An impulsive little devil who spoke without thinking and did whatever came to mind. Yin Shen didn't speak. His mind was immersed in the mythical conch shell, and he had no extra thought to chat with this little devil. But Polo bounced around behind God, like a child trying to get an adult's attention. "God, allow this clever and wise Polo to solve your troubles. I shall surely find a way for you to descend into this world. Then, as your messenger, I will travel with you to the largest cities in the world." The child spun in circles, excitedly saying, God and his cleverest messenger, Polo, together, tasting the most delicious food and smelling the most beautiful flowers. Feeling the wind on the mountains and the waves in the sea, listening to the stories and interesting life journeys of travelers from afar. Yin Shen smiled at Polo's naivety and fearlessness, while also seeing through Polo's true intentions. "You just want to go out and play. Do you know the consequences of deceiving God with lies?" Polo became frightened. Polo may not be able to do it, but Polo can go outside and find someone who can. Yin Shen intended to give this dream lord who loved to boast and this little brat a taste of his might, letting him know that everyone must be responsible for their words and actions. "If you can't do it, I'll lock you in the dream world. For 100 years, I won't allow you to come out." This move hit Polo's weakness, making him shudder involuntarily. What he feared most was loneliness. And losing his freedom. 42. Riding the wind and waves, a golden figure crossed the horizon from afar, passing over the surface of the sea. He glided over the reefs and skimmed across the water, landing on the roof of a building in the god-descended city. The god-descended city in the early morning was like a person who had just awakened. People walked out of their homes and poured onto the streets. The city gates opened, with some entering and others leaving. The crowd grew larger and noisier. The marketplace was filled with customers wanting to buy goods, merchants wanting to sell, and all sorts of novel items, attracting Polo's attention. La la la, like a golden butterfly, he flitted through the streets and crowds, yet no one on the streets could see him. He could only be seen if he wished to be seen. He was a peculiar being who could walk between dreams and illusions. In the marketplace of the god-descended city, the subjects and merchants of the Yinsai kingdom conducted transactions using special stone coins engraved with the crown of wisdom and a scepter. The marketplace sold dried fish, soft-tongued snails, dried seaweed, and various other foods. There were meticulously crafted bone and stone tools, all kinds of rare treasures found in the sea, and some odd and strange things. Polo stopped in front of a group of people confined in stone cages, curiously observing those dirty, extremely thin trilobite men. These trilobite men were imprisoned in short and small cages, unable to stretch their bodies or spread their arms. It looked very uncomfortable. Have they committed some crime? Why are they locked in cages? The slave master, who had his back turned to Polo and was rubbing some kind of undersea plant to make rope, replied, "They are slaves. Their ancestors once committed the unforgivable sin of blaspheming against the gods and offending the King of Wisdom, so they were sentenced by King Yesil to become slaves. How about it? Want to buy some and take them back? The children born to these slaves are also slaves. Buy a few healthy slaves, and your family will have slaves to order around for generations to come." Polo looked at those trilobite men with dull eyes and clicked his tongue. "You trilobite men are truly terrible, actually enslaving your own kind like mindless shrimp and ancestral fish, even condemning their descendants to never be free." The slave master turned his head and said with amusement, "We trilobite men, you speak as if you're not a trilobite man yourself." There was clearly someone talking to him just now, but he saw nothing. Polo went wherever he pleased, without any target or destination. He was interested in everything in this world. Even a few trilobite children playing and laughing by the roadside could captivate him for half a day. He saw a group of trilobite men leaving the city in an orderly formation. These elderly trilobite men knelt before the city wall, facing the direction of the sea, and shouted with a heavy and hoarse tone. Their expressions were pious, lending a sacred meaning to their chants. Meanwhile, more trilobite men gathered inside the city to watch, some clasping their hands in front of their chests, closing their eyes, and chanting the same words as the elderly trilobite men. Another group of elders are going on a pilgrimage to the Sky Temple. If they can't be buried in the God-given land, being buried at the foot of the Sky Temple isn't bad either. I heard Prince Eli doesn't like the High Priest of the Sky Temple. They've even had direct confrontations recently. Who doesn't know that King Yesiel was cursed and punished by the gods along with High Priest Shlode for devouring the God-given object? Even the crown of wisdom was lost in the demonic abyss. How could Prince Eli not have grievances against the Sky Temple? Their voices grew softer as if afraid of being heard by others. After Yesiel's passing, Eli's father succeeded the throne. The loss of the crown of wisdom fundamentally weakened the royal authority, and Eli's father was too old to support the kingdom. Eli took control of the military and the 3 fusion monsters left by King Yesiel, becoming the most powerful figure in the kingdom, and could even be considered its actual ruler. Polo didn't care much about matters of power and struggle. He only heard these people mention going to the Sky Temple, the place where he was born. Time to go back. He wanted to see his birthplace, the beautiful God's Cup Flower Garden, and what it had become. Sky Temple. Inside the palace building, as grand as a giant's dwelling, a group of priests of God knelt beneath the statue of Yin Shen. Leading them was a female trilobite man, who brought the group to pray at the foot of the statue. With hands clasped against her chest and eyes tightly closed, she was extremely devout. Her white bone armor had starlight-like silver spots, very rare and beautiful. After the prayer, everyone slowly retreated from the temple, facing the statue. Once outside the temple, their expressions were no longer so solemn. After all, they were a group of young people. They crowded together in the colonnade, asking each other questions and even chasing and playing. One female trilobite man cautiously approached the only person not playing around and asked with a serious expression, "Star, do you think God really exists?" As the only high priest among them, Star answered with an unquestionable tone, "Of course. Of course he exists. Otherwise, where did we come from? Where does our power come from? Our wisdom, authority, our food, our writing, and our language. They are all bestowed by God." The other person hesitated as if wanting to ask something further. Star had long seen through her thoughts and directly said, "We can't see God because we haven't witnessed his glory. How can people with original sin appear before the divine?" But Star, imitating her father and ancestors, solemnly turned her head and recited that divine word passed down through generations. Whether mortals believe in God or not, whether mortals can see God or not, God is there. Star's father was the current high priest of the Sky Temple, the priest who reminded High Priest Shlode that the divine technique of the Sun Cup might have issues. Her ancestor was Xylong, the 4th son of Redlichia, which also meant starlight. Her father named her Star, revealing his affection for her. Star was currently the attendant priest of Yin Shen, but as the heir of the Xylong family, she was destined to succeed her father as the high priest of the Sky Temple. As a price, she could not leave the Sky Temple and could never even descend from this city of God's servants or leave the holy mountain. Passing through stone steps from the heights, she arrived at the God's Cup Flower Garden below, where she resided nearby. She knelt outside the God's Cup Flower Garden, closed her eyes, and unleashed a divine technique. Projection. This was a divine technique she had explored, allowing her to form a contract with other lifeforms using her own mythical bloodline. It included the divine technique of bestowing of power and the illusory power of the Sun Cup. However, it was currently imperfect, with many unresolved issues. Star believed that the power of the wisdom authority did not lie in relying on external forces, unlike Shlode's idea of fusing with the Sun Cup to explore the path of advancing the wisdom authority. Instead, it lay in the strength of one's own wisdom, thought, and consciousness. Unfortunately, she didn't dare tell her father because he forbade her from exploring the power related to the Sun Cup. It was a forbidden power, a cursed power. Although she could not leave the Sky Temple and the Holy Mountain, she hoped to use this power and borrow the eyes of other lifeforms to see the outside world. Just as Star's consciousness was projecting into an ancestral fish at the foot of the mountain, using its eyes to freely tour and view the holy lake, a figure suddenly emerged from the sun cup flower bed beside her. Wow, what an amazing divine technique. How did you come up with it? Polo lay on the flower cups in the garden, hugging the largest one in his arms, his face tilted so close that it almost touched the other person. Star turned her head, her mouth wide open. She never imagined that someone would be hiding in the God's Cup flower garden. Their gazes met, and a new story began. 43. Polo grinned at Star, noticing that she had her mouth wide open but wasn't saying anything. He wondered, is this person too shocked to speak? Why isn't she talking? Star's mouth was agape, utterly astonished. Why isn't the sun cup biting him? Polo continued to ask, hey, how did you do that? You can actually project your consciousness so far away and control a fish in the lake. After all, Polo was a mythical being, the ruler of the Dream Authority. With a single glance, he saw through Star's divine technique. He could even wander between consciousness and the realm of dreams, finding the fish that Star had controlled. Star was even more shocked by Polo's words, her heart filled with disbelief. How could he possibly know about my divine technique? She took several steps back, eyeing Polo warily. Who are you? Polo spread his arms, and without any effort, his body floated upwards, then gently descended to the ground like a falling flower. He walked towards Star, completely unconcerned about her wariness, as if they were already friends. I'm Polo. What's your name? You're quite impressive. Can this projection power allow anyone's consciousness to be projected into this world? What about after the projection? Can you feel the wind? Can you experience the taste of food? Can you smell the fragrance of flowers and the breath of the sea breeze? Polo's barrage of questions didn't receive an answer, but Star also saw that he meant no harm. That's my divine technique, but it's not complete yet. She looked at Polo with a strange gaze, realizing that he was just a young brat, but she had never seen a being like him before. I'm Star. What, exactly are you? You look so strange, different from all of us. And you can even speak. An existence that isn't a trilobite man but can speak is truly bizarre. Polo looked at Star with disdain, as if she were a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. Have you seen God? Have you been to the divine halls? Star, this is the divine hall. Polo had a haughty expression. I'm talking about the God-given land, the Yinsai temple built by Redlichia, the first king of wisdom. If you had seen the murals Redlichia carved for God, you would know that this is the appearance of the divine race. Star had experienced more shocks in this short period than she had since her birth, but it wasn't surprising. Although she was born into nobility, she had never left this holy mountain. You've been to the God-given land? No, how can you address the great king of wisdom like that? Polo raised his head proudly. I am God's messenger. I came from the God-given land, bearing the mission bestowed upon me by God. Star wanted to inquire further, but Polo wasn't going to continue. Star, if you've made up your mind, come find me and become my companion. Just call my name, and I will come to you. Together, we'll do something incomparably great. Polo's robe billowed, stirring up layers of dreamlike starlight. Tremendous extraordinary power surged within the God's Cup flower garden. Under Star's shocked gaze, Polo vanished into another world. His own dream world. Star chased after the dreamlike light, watching as the hem of his robe brushed past her, his nimble dancing figure disappearing in the heights. She stood there for a long time, not knowing how to describe this fantastical encounter. She was a high priest, the heir of the Xylong family. Yet she couldn't detect his presence, couldn't see how he came, and couldn't see how he left. The power he possessed was far beyond hers. Is he really God's messenger? She hastily ran all the way, passing through the colonnade and the steep steps. She reached the temple and knelt on the floor. God, so you are still watching over us? She looked up at the statue of Yin Shen and recited the Redlichia covenant. God said, quote. When she had recited these words of the covenant before, her heart had been filled with confusion, merely echoing the words of others. But now, the confusion in her heart gradually disappeared. She felt incredibly fulfilled and secure. This was a world with God, and they were a race blessed by God. She was somewhat tempted by Polo's invitation but also afraid. She had never left the Sky Temple or the Holy Mountain. This was her home and her entire world. Although she was curious about the outside world, she was equally afraid of leaving the world she was familiar with. God descended city. Everyone in the palace knelt on the ground in salute, and the palace was shrouded in a sorrowful atmosphere. The king is dead, and Eli was undoubtedly the new king. He stood in the palace, watching the departed king being placed into a stone coffin. He personally carried the coffin and buried his father in the royal cemetery. Eli didn't feel too much grief over his father's passing, far less than the immense impact his grandfather Yesiel's death had on him. He had grown up beside King Yesiel since childhood, listening to and witnessing King Yesiel's great deeds and legends. He looked down on his somewhat weak father and longed to accomplish feats like King Yesiel. But the power of the king of Yinsai was gradually waning. Having lost the supreme power of the wisdom kingship, the king of Yinsai had lost the crown of wisdom and could no longer easily command all the royal families as before. The various city-states of the Yinsai kingdom no longer fully obeyed as they once did. Eli, wearing a new crown, summoned the ministers of the Yinsai kingdom to his palace chamber. "How are things with the Sky Temple? Is the Xilong family willing to hand over the Rube East to consolidate the power of the king of Yinsai and suppress the other 4 royal branches that controlled fusion monsters and were growing stronger?" Eli planned to reclaim the 7 fusion monsters. The first target was the Sky Temple. The fusion monster of the Xilong family was a must-have, especially since the Sky Temple also had quite a few priests of God, which was also a powerful force. The minister was apprehensive, but that is the temple of God. Eli nodded but remained noncommittal. God indeed exists. But so what? God is like the lofty stars, finding it superfluous to even glance at the mortal world. Do you think he cares about what we do? Does he care if we are devout or hypocritical? Eli turned his head and bent down to look at the trembling minister kneeling on the ground. Who do you think we are? Redlichia, God's firstborn. No, he only sees us as a group of ugly and lowly insects, feeling disgust even to look upon us. Will he step out to punish me? Will he despise me for this? No, God will not. We don't even have the qualifications to be despised or punished by him. How could the lofty God bear to cast his precious gaze upon us? God only favors his firstborn. Even the great King Yesiel couldn't obtain a shred of his favor. Eli spoke casually, but his chest was heaving, and his breathing had become heavy. He had personally witnessed how devoutly King Yesiel believed in God. He had offered everything to God, only to lose everything in the end. He, too, had once believed in God immensely. Even now, he didn't deny God's greatness. But he would not be like King Redlichia and his grandfather Yesiel, offering his all to God. He said lightly, "What belongs to God returns to God, and what belongs to the king returns to the king." 44. Deep in the night, the Sky Temple was silent and mysterious in the moonlight and sea of clouds. 3 monsters, as large as small mountains, were shuttling through the lake, then crawling out of the water towards the Sky Temple. The fusion monsters climbed the steps in the darkness, followed by thousands of soldiers from the god-descended city surging into the holy mountain with weapons in hand. Someone inside the city opened the gates, and the soldiers crowding the steps were ushered into the city. A premeditated attack descended upon this city of God's servants. Before anyone could react, they were already plunged into chaos and slaughter. They never thought anyone would dare attack the holy mountain and the temple. Ah! Amidst screams of agony, many fell to the ground. It's the people from the god-descended city, they are the king's guards. In the confusion, some recognized the identities of these people by the moonlight. The king's soldiers. Why would the king's soldiers attack the temple? Some still couldn't believe it was real. The soldiers of Eli, the king of Yinsai, were rapidly occupying this city of God's servants. More figures headed towards the Sky Temple at the highest point, the peak of the holy mountain. That was the core of this place, where those who held the authority to perform rituals and serve the gods resided. At this moment, the controller of the Sky Temple stepped forward, angrily shouting the name of the king of Yinsai, Eli. Why attack the temple of God? Do you want to blaspheme against the divine? A fusion monster under the control of the old priest swung its vine whip, tossing dozens of soldiers from the heights. But 2 other fusion monsters immediately rushed up to block the old priest's fusion monster. In the darkness, a heavy and imposing voice rang out. The ones blaspheming against the divine are you, the scum of the Xilong family, accomplices of Shlode. It was you who touched the forbidden, desecrated and destroyed the God-given cup, bringing disaster upon us all. You are the disgrace of the royal family, the culprits behind the decline of royal authority. Now you still want to seize and occupy the temple of the gods. As the king of Yinsai, how can I tolerate your unforgivable sins? Eli, the king of Yinsai, stood atop the head of the fusion monster Nini. As the fusion monster writhed, he entered the inner city of the god's servants, slowly approaching the old priest and the battlefield through the wide passage. He quietly watched as the other party gradually fell into a desperate situation, realizing that fighting against two opponents was a daunting task. Finally, the fusion monster of the Xylong family was captured and restrained by two fusion monsters, and the old priest was subdued and brought before Eli. The old priest looked at Eli, his originally angry emotions suddenly calming down. Eli, can you still not forget the mistake Shlode made? In the spacious temple passage, Eli stepped closer to the old priest with his scepter. Shlode is a member of your Xylong family. Of course, you must bear the consequences of his mistakes. The newly appointed king of Yinsai, Eli, stabbed the old priest to death with his scepter, just as Redlichia once judged the sinner Ents. Executing someone in this manner was the greatest humiliation and punishment for the royal family. The sins of the executed would be forever nailed to the pillar of shame, witnessed by future generations. Eli turned his head to look at his soldiers and everyone in the city of God's servants. It's over. The Xylong family deceived God and deceived King Yesiel. Shlode of the Xylong family violated the taboo. It was he who, in the name of God's oracle, deceived King Yesiel into engaging in a decisive battle with the sinful people. It was also because he violated the taboo that King Yesiel was killed, causing us to lose the wisdom kingship bestowed by God. All of this is because Shlode of the Xylong family impersonated a receiver of God's revelation. How can these blasphemers be worthy of occupying the temple of the gods? I, Eli, your king, am the spokesperson of God, the acting representative of God among men. Thousands of soldiers cheered and roared, while the others in the city of God's servants knelt and paid homage to Eli, expressing their submission. Eli gouged out the bone between the old priest's eyebrows. It was the seal of Ru, bestowed by God to the royal bloodline family, the authority to command the Ru beast. Now, it belonged to Eli. He possessed the fourth Ru beast and took the first step in consolidating and reclaiming royal authority. The sleeping star was awakened and ran out of the temple. She still didn't know what had happened, but everything was already over. The wind howled at the temple on the peak of the holy mountain. She stood on the high foundation stone of the temple, looking down at her aged father's corpse being dragged out, his flesh and blood mangled. The city was filled with the cheers of soldiers and the sound of wailing. She stood on the heights, her eyes unfocused, staring blankly at the scene below like a stone statue. She felt as if she was still in a dream, not yet awake. Everything she saw was just a nightmare in her dream. This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. When the corpse passed in front of her, she could no longer hold back. She rushed down and threw herself onto her father's body. She finally couldn't help but cry out loudly. Eli, the king of Yinsai, looked at Star. Of course, he knew this heir of the Xylong family. Tears are a symbol of weakness. As a member of the royal family, even in death, one should proudly hold their head high. How can you display such an ugly state? To be like those lowly slaves and commoners, it's truly a disgrace. Although feeling some disgust, Eli had no intention of killing Star. As fellow members of the royal family, he couldn't truly exterminate another branch of the royal family. That would weaken the strength of the royal bloodline. Eli had already made a plan, intending to make Star the new bride for his son. Then, he would have his son replace the Xylong family as the new controller of the Sky Temple, converting the remaining members of the Xylong family and the priests of the Sky Temple into his own forces. Lock her up. Amidst her tears, Star was forcibly dragged away by the soldiers. Even though she was a high priest, she was insignificant before Eli and the four fusion monsters. The struggle between royal authority and divine authority among the Trilobite men had begun from this moment. In the dungeon of the city of God's servants, moonlight shone through the narrow window, just wide enough for an arm to reach out. Star was trying to find a way to escape. She knew that if she stayed here, only a miserable fate awaited her. But there were two priests guarding her outside, and a fusion monster at the exit of the dungeon. Any slight movement from her would immediately alert the priests and that fusion monster. And then it would further alert Eli, the king of Yinsai, that terrifying tyrant who seemed invincibly powerful to her. She was extremely panicked and afraid, so much that her entire body was cold and even trembling. What should I do? What should I do? Suddenly, she thought of someone, that strange figure who possessed tremendous extraordinary power. Star immediately knelt before the moonlight shining through the window, clasping her hands against her chest in the posture of praying and making wishes to the gods, pleading to Polo, the messenger of God. Polo, messenger of God, if you can truly hear me, please answer my request. Please. Save me. In the night, a gentle breeze and faint dreamlike starlight descended upon the city of God's servants. The dreamlike starlight passed in front of the fusion monster, but it didn't react at all. The starlight rushed into the passage of the dungeon, and the two soldiers guarding the dungeon immediately collapsed to the ground. Click. Polo appeared inside the dungeon. Wherever he passed, one trilobite man after another fell asleep, including the two priests of God. He directly passed through the stone door of the cell, as if the door didn't exist. My companion, you finally sought me out. Are you ready to embark on a great adventure with me? Star looked at Polo as if grasping a lifeline. Polo, messenger of God, I am in a crisis. Please save me and take me away. Polo laughed, nodding his head, while circling around Star with his steps, his golden and magnificent robe lifting up its fluttering hem. Of course, isn't that what I came to do, to save you? His steps came to an abrupt stop, and Polo stood before Star. He looked at Star with a rare serious expression. But if I save you, you must repay me. Star, what repayment do you want? Polo, you must perfect your projection divine technique and teach it to me. Polo had not forgotten the mission God had given him. 45. Escaped. No, how could she possibly run away? Eli's sharp gaze swept over the people in the temple. Someone has betrayed me. His suspicious gaze passed over one person after another. Among them, some were responsible for guarding, while others were in charge of monitoring. Kill them. Those being dragged away cried out, King. We really didn't. We saw a figure, and then we fell asleep. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. Eli couldn't be bothered to listen to their explanations. A king didn't need evidence to kill. A single utterance of, I suspect you, was enough. Eli finished speaking and pointed at two priests of God. You are of the royal family. I don't want to investigate whether it was one of you two who let her go, but now I'm giving you both a chance. The person escaped from your hands, so you will go and bring her back. Otherwise, your family and children will die along with you. The two priests of God trembled. King, we will surely bring her back. A minister stepped forward to console Eli. King, she's just a woman. If she runs, let her run. We can just select another person from the Xylong family. However, Eli laughed. He felt that her escape was actually a good opportunity. No member of the royal family can be underestimated, especially since she is the heir of the Sky Temple. Where can she possibly run to? She can only go to the other three royal bloodline families. Only they would dare to shelter a member of the royal family. It's a perfect opportunity to test the attitudes of these three royal bloodline families. Eli summoned his three sons and ordered the three Ru beasts to obey their commands. He instructed his sons to lead an army and a Ru beast each to the city-states of the three royal bloodline families, tracking down where Star had gone. He wanted to see who dared to shelter Star. That would become his excuse to strike against them. Perhaps, he could seize the opportunity to reclaim another Ru beast and consolidate the power of the king of Yinsai. However, he never anticipated that at this moment, a terrifying mythical being was accompanying Star. In a desolate land, as far as the eye could see, there were towering boulders, their jagged and bizarre shapes resembling frightening magical shadows in the darkness. Star and a group of people from the Xylong family had fled to this place, intending to rest for a while before setting off again at dawn. Overnight, she had gone from being a high and mighty member of the royal family and an attendant priest of the Sky Temple to a fugitive of the Yinsai kingdom. Yesterday, she had everything, but now she had nothing. Father. Star hugged her legs and sobbed, hiding in a corner behind a rock. She didn't dare show weakness in front of others. She was now the pillar and backbone of the entire family. Polo jumped out, revealing half of his body from behind the rock. What are you crying about? Star was startled and quickly wiped her tears. I'm not crying. Polo leaned closer, stepping out from behind the rock. Don't wipe them. I saw everything. You were crying. The free-spirited Polo had no understanding of grief. He felt that this world was full of joy. Star stopped hiding it and admitted. The king killed my father, and I don't know what to do. I'm really weak and useless. I don't even know where to go tomorrow. Polo couldn't comprehend. If it's really that painful, then go defeat that king. Make him pay for what he has done. Star lifted her head, but he is the king of Yinsai. Polo straightened his body. Of course you can't do it alone, but now you have a companion, the incomparably powerful Lord of Dreams. The messenger of Yin Shen, the herald of illusion and dreams. The clever and wise Polo. The string of titles that were too long to remember left Star baffled. After saying them himself, Polo became even more excited. That's right. This is what adventure is all about, the stuff of great epics and heroic tales. He spun in circles like an elegant dancer. He enjoyed expressing his inner joy in this way, but at this moment, he felt that dancing alone was not enough. His golden robe extended a corner that resembled a hand, taking Star's hand and spinning with her. Under the starry sky, two people danced in the moonlight. Star, let's go defeat that king together. Let's embark on this grand and magnificent adventure together. Polo loved pursuing thrilling and fresh stories. He hated monotony and being restrained. Star had a dazed expression, completely controlled by Polo's rhythm and dance steps. But it did make her feel much more at ease, gradually calming her initially fearful mood. She felt that Polo was right. Her father's death could not be in vain. I will make the brutal king pay the price. Polo fell asleep, nestling beside Star like a child. Star turned her head to look at him. The messenger of God. She had never seen anyone like him before. Is this what people from the God-given land are like? What exactly is that place like? How can it make someone so carefree and happy? In his dream, Polo saw God. God granted him an audience, allowing Polo to enter his dream. God's dream was completely different from his own. It was a dream of endless skyscrapers and cities stretching to the horizon, controlling the sky, earth, and sea. They even cast their gaze upon the stars above. Miracles. Divine power. None of these seemed sufficient to describe such power. Polo stood by God's side, his mouth agape. Is there such a powerful race? Is this the legendary divine race? This place. Is it the world of God? God stood atop an iron tower, overlooking the bustling metropolis of millions. He was lost in thought and reminiscence, as if only by repeatedly remembering could he not forget who he was and where he came from. God said, "It once was." 3 words, containing endless vicissitudes and sighs. He now stood upon the earth. The distance from his home was not measured in light years, but in hundreds of millions of years. Polo seemed to half understand. He pondered for a moment before speaking to God. Oh, great God, your messenger has found someone. She will surely be able to create a true divine descent technique. She is a genius, a prodigy in pioneering divine techniques. Polo chattered incessantly, like a child boasting about a sandcastle or a toy he had made. God wasn't particularly concerned, or rather, he never truly expected Polo to find an answer for him from the beginning. Polo, nothing in this world can carry the will of God. Polo was not daunted by the difficulty at all. He maintained an optimistic attitude towards the future and was full of hope. This is just the beginning. Polo will surely find it. Polo is meant to travel this world as a messenger alongside God. 46. Star stood before all the members of the Xylong family, mustering her courage for the first time to shoulder the responsibility of being the successor to the high priest of the Sky Temple. I know everyone is afraid. We have lost our home, and we have all been driven out by the king. But it's not our fault. Everyone raised their heads, their eyes filled with an unyielding gaze. She spoke with increasing fluency and growing fervor. Under the gaze of everyone, she shouted with all her might. The brutal king has murdered his own kin and desecrated the temple of the gods. We should not simply accept the atrocities he has inflicted upon us. We should resist him. He is unfit to sit on the throne any longer. We should unite with the other royal bloodline families and overthrow his rule. Immediately, someone echoed her call. That's right. The king has committed a wrong, so why should we bear the consequences? We are also descendants of King Redlichia, noble members of the royal bloodline. What right does he have to kill our patriarch without reason? He even attacked the Sky Temple. He is no longer the king. He has betrayed his faith in God. The clansmen, who had originally been dejected, began to gather their courage one by one under Star's awakening. They followed Star and embarked on a new journey. They headed to the city-state of Samo. It was the territory of the Samo family and the first ally and reinforcement they sought. However, as soon as they entered the outer villages of the Samo city-state and made contact with the Samo family, they didn't wait for the Samo family's people to come and receive them. Instead, they directly encountered those who had come to hunt them down. Stian, the king's son whose name meant sky, pursued them while riding a terrifying giant beast. In the distance, there were also 2 priests of God, accompanied by 200 elite soldiers of the Yinsai kingdom. Not good. It's the Ru beast. The king has sent people to kill us. The terrifying Ru beast drilled out from the sandy soil, blocking their path. With a single bite, it swallowed a trilobite man. Stian stood atop the Ru beast, his cold gaze fixed upon them. Escape. Where will you escape to? You blasphemers and the Samo family who dare to betray the king, you will all face the king's punishment. Stian had captured Star and discovered evidence of the Samo family's betrayal. He was extremely excited. Accomplishing such a feat would surely earn him praise from the king and serve as an important merit for him to become the future king. The tentacles of the Ru beast lashed out, directly piercing through a dozen trilobite men in the village, several of whom were members of the Xylong family. Star extended her hand, divine technique. A force that appeared out of thin air pushed away all the clansmen around her, while she herself was directly exposed before the Ru beast. Roar! The Ru beast roared, spraying saliva all over her. Its eerie mouthparts descended from above, like a pitch-black giant hole ready to devour her. She was so frightened that she couldn't move. She realized that her plan was worthless in the face of absolute power. Her courage was laughable, like a clown in the face of the Ru beast. Descendant of Shelly, I am your enemy. A golden figure appeared before Star. Polo actually stood up to the giant monster, over 20 meters tall, with his own strength. Countless root tendrils extended from beneath his golden robe, transforming into root tendrils dozens of meters long, entangling the Ru beast while also saving Star. Prince Stian looked at Polo with the same astonishment as when Star first saw him. What are you? Polo revealed a smile. I am the one who represents God to punish you. Stian flew into a rage. Kill him. Roar. The Ru beast also sensed his anger, its eyeballs turning red as its entire body swelled up like a ball. It seemed that the Ru beast was about to break free, with the vines snapping one by one. Polo's authority was the dream world, and in terms of power, it still couldn't compare to the Ru beast with its life authority. Polo immediately prepared his dream world power, ready to directly invade the consciousness of the Ru beast and pull it into the realm of dreams. At this moment, Star leapt into action. She stepped on the root tendrils and the Ru beast, charging towards Stian. The prince drew his divine weapon forged from the tip of the Ru beast's tentacle, facing Star without fear. Star, you are no match for me. The prince's disdainful gaze, tempered by numerous battles, did not provoke any emotion in Star. She calmly and swiftly charged at Stian, drawing the same divine weapon. The power of their divine techniques collided, constantly locking each other or interfering with each other's movements. Stian had more combat experience, but Star's divine power was stronger. Enter the world of dreams and illusions. At this moment, a golden light burst forth from Polo. A dream-like starlight enveloped Stian and his Ru beast, causing both to lose consciousness. Star seized the opportunity and pierced through Stian's chest with her weapon. Ah! Star killed Stian. Her entire body went limp, and the weapon fell from her hand. There was no trace of her previous bravery and fearlessness. This was the first time Star had killed someone. She was terrified, her hands covered in blood. She kept gasping for breath, her heart feeling as if it would leap out of her chest. Polo controlled the starlight enveloping the Ru beast and floated over to Star's side. Star clung to Polo's clothes as if grasping a support. Star, are you afraid? Star stubbornly replied, no, I'm not. Polo laughed heartily, seeing through Star's tough front. I told you, with me here, we will definitely win. Dash. Star reclaimed the Ru beast of her father and the Xylong family. The two priests of God who were battling the Xylong clansmen and village guards in the distance quickly surrendered. From these people, she learned about the king of Yinsai's orders. The king saw through my plan. He also sent others to the three major royal bloodline families. Our plan to unite with others has failed. The other two royal bloodline families are threatened by fusion monsters, and no one dares to help us. With just us and the Samo family, we are no match for the king. Polo stood up excitedly. I have a plan. Star looked at him. What plan do you have? Polo pointed in the direction of the god-descended city. My plan is, we'll directly attack the god-descended city and defeat the king of Yinsai in front of everyone. He can ambush us, so why can't we ambush him? If we go back now, he only has one Ru beast left. Why should we fear him? Star was stunned by Polo's plan but felt it was feasible. Polo, don't be afraid. A true warrior should fight head-on. Don't worry, everything is guided by God. Polo pulled the hesitant Star and directly went outside. Hurry, now is the best opportunity. We mustn't miss it. Ru beast, heed my command. Let's go. Polo's plan was full of adventure, but as Star acknowledged Polo's plan, she also made other preparations. She and the Samo family simultaneously sent a letter to the other two royal bloodline families, informing them that they had reclaimed the Ru beast of the Xylong family and were heading to the royal capital to challenge King Eli. She didn't expect them to help her but hoped they would do their best to stall the two princes, waiting for the final outcome of the battle. They set off, followed by the heir of the Samo family and the Ru beast. Star cautiously asked Polo. Polo, did you really receive guidance from God? Polo was a bit puzzled. Huh. Isn't that what you all shout? Why can you say it, but I can't? Star looked at Polo with a shocked gaze. We can't receive God's guidance, so we say everything is God's guidance. Polo, you are God's messenger. You should be able to receive it. How can you say it casually? Polo found this reasoning strange. Why could those who couldn't receive guidance say everything was God's guidance, while those who could receive it couldn't say it? Anyway, God doesn't care. Despite saying this, Polo was still somewhat afraid of being locked up by God when he returned. Did God really not care? Who knows? How could they fathom God's will? He felt that he couldn't speak carelessly anymore. Speaking wrongly would have consequences. Polo underwent some changes, becoming a bit more mature. Perhaps this was the true reason why God let him leave the God-given land. 47. Eli led his royal guards back from the Sky Temple, catching sight of the ocean and the majestic city by the shore from afar. Although he had reclaimed the Sky Temple, the God-descended city was still the capital of the Yinsai Kingdom. He spoke of the information sent back from afar. Stian sent back a message. The Xilong family and the Samo family are in cahoots. Just as I thought. The second one wanting to betray the kingdom is the Samo family. The minister beside him greatly admired Eli's methods and expressed his submission and reverence. If we can reclaim the Ru beast of the Samo family, the other two royal bloodline families will have no choice but to fully submit. A smile appeared on Eli's face. He fell into a reverie without speaking. At that time, he would possess power and glory nearly equal to his grandfather, King Yesiel. The entire Yinsai kingdom would have only one will. And that would be his. Roar! A giant beast drilled out from the earth, directly splitting the formation of the royal guards in half. More than 20 people fell into the sandy sinkhole, caught off guard. The surrounding guards immediately shouted at the top of their lungs. Attack! Form ranks! Everyone dispersed, surrounding the king and the Ru beast. However, what terrified them even more was that another Ru beast had crawled up from the sea on the other side, heading towards the king. Trilobite men from both the sea and land surrounded them, belonging to the Xilong and Samo branches of the royal bloodline families. Eli unhurriedly engaged the opposing Ru beast while giving orders. Blow the horn, have the garrison in the city come out to meet us. The sound of the horn rang out, transmitting a message to the distant God-descended city. In fact, there was no need to send a message. With such a commotion, the entire God-descended city couldn't possibly miss it. Someone is attacking the king. Open the city gates and support King Eli. Everyone gather and prepare for battle. The city walls were in chaos, with people shouting and running about. However, at this moment, a golden figure descended from above, standing atop the city gate. The dazzling color and strange divine appearance attracted everyone's gaze. He spread his hands, and a golden illusory figure dozens of meters tall enveloped the outside of the city walls, moving in sync with his movements. The colossal illusion didn't cause any actual damage but could bring immense intimidation to everyone in the city. Sure enough, everyone immediately stopped what they were doing. The soldiers who had originally wanted to charge out retreated one by one, frightened. Quick, look at the city wall. What is that thing? The gigantic shadow loomed over the God-descended city from the outside. While terrifying the guards on the city walls, it also caused immense panic. The crowd on the streets continuously fled in the opposite direction. Run! The soldiers of the God-descended city fearfully retreated or cowered in the corner, trembling, afraid that the colossal shadow would notice them. But several priests of God from the Yesiel family rushed out, looking at Polo. Who exactly are you? What on earth are you? The gigantic shadow spoke. I am the messenger of God. Those who abandon faith in God will ultimately face divine punishment. The few priests didn't believe it at all. But the extraordinary power of the other party had already surpassed their imagination. Even King Yesiel, who had planted the Sun Cup in the past, couldn't create such a colossal illusion. Impossible. You're fake. Fake. Everyone, don't be afraid of him. The power bestowed by God will surely defeat him. Several priests summoned the soldiers to charge out of the city while launching an attack on Polo themselves. The gigantic shadow waved its hand, and the power of dreams descended from above. The power bestowed by God. The blessing God has given me surpasses yours. Swaths of people fell into slumber, with hundreds collapsing to the ground. No one dared to step forward anymore. In the face of such power, numbers lost all meaning. One person, blocking an entire city, causing thousands upon thousands to lose the courage to resist. No reinforcements came out from the city to rescue Eli, leaving him isolated and helpless outside the city. Surrounded by the Xylong and Samo families, Eli gradually fell into a perilous situation. At this moment, no one could save him. One Rubeast against two. This situation felt all too familiar. In an instant, a strong sense of absurdity welled up in his heart. So quickly, he was experiencing the same feeling as the old priest of the Sky Temple. It was as if he was being toyed with by a powerful force. That force was called fate. Or rather, the will of God. Eli also noticed the commotion in the God-descended city. The unknown gigantic shadow blocked the reinforcements from the city, completely shattering his hopes. The only difference was that the Sky Temple and the Holy Mountain were a dead end, while the God-descended city faced the ocean. Eli wielded his scepter, unleashing the most powerful wisdom authority with all his might, striking the eye of one Rubeast. The giant beast Nini beneath him immediately forced back the other Rubeast, breaking away from the battlefield and fleeing into the distance. The royal guards fighting for Eli against the Xylong and Samo families never expected him to directly abandon them and leave. King, the God-descended city is that way, that way. Eli fled. He escaped back into the ocean. Star stood atop the head of the giant beast, looking down at the royal guards below. I am Star of the Xylong family, a royal bloodline. The new high priest of the Sky Temple. The servant of God and the conveyor of his will. Your king has lost. Surrender. In such a short time, her bearing had undergone a tremendous change. Facing so many people, she showed no timidity. Confronted with death and peril, she no longer wept. What truly brought about great change in a person was never time, but rather what was lost and gained over the years. Dash. In the distant sea, most fish swam in the warm coastal waters. Here, far from land, even life began to grow scarce. In a trilobite man village that had been abandoned for decades, a group of unexpected visitors intruded. The one leading them wore a crown, looking disheveled and miserable. Since the Battle of the Lost Wisdom Kingship decades ago, the Yinsai Kingdom had gradually abandoned the cities in the distant sea. Eli had once thought of returning, but he never imagined it would be under such circumstances. He waited on the sea surface for his two sons, hoping they would return with the Rubeasts. That way, he could still change the lost situation. In the end, what arrived was the news of one son dead and the other surrendering. Dandy is dead. His three sons were named Sky, Earth, and Ocean respectively, showcasing Eli's former ambitions. And now, both Sky and Earth were gone, leaving only Ocean. Ha 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 ha, what does this mean? Is it telling me or mocking me? Is it saying that neither the sky nor the earth belongs to me? Hiding in the frigid deep sea is my fate. He laughed, but even with his strong front, he couldn't stop the desolation from welling up in his heart. Of the three fusion monsters belonging to the Yesile family, only one remained in the end. It was also the one God had originally bestowed upon Yesile. He gazed longingly at the coastline of the land of origin, unwilling to accept defeat. My kingdom. King Yesile's Yinsai realm, how could it be lost in my hands? Eli found it difficult to accept his failure. He had lost his power, glory, and strength. This was more painful than losing his life. Turning around, he led his remaining followers into the depths of the vast ocean. The descendants of King Yesile retreated back to the sea. Yesile, the second-generation king of wisdom, had crossed the ocean and found the land of origin where God and his firstborn, King Redlichia, had descended, laying the foundation for the Yinsai kingdom. Now, his grandson had lost everything and returned to the deep sea once more. 48. Star rode the Rubeast, leading the army into the God-descended city. The entire city cheered and rejoiced in welcoming her, with nobles who once stood high above now prostrating on both sides of the street. It was as if this city had always belonged to her, awaiting her inspection. Great priest of God, and the messenger of God from the God-given land. Please accept the offerings from the people of Yinsai. Welcome the priest of God and the messenger of God into the God-descended land. More people kneeling on the ground looked up at Polo in his golden, splendid robe, as if seeing a divine being. His appearance, so different from the trilobite men, symbolized divinity at this moment, symbolizing the myth they could not reach. Look, that is the legendary appearance of God. The mother of life, the servant of God, Shelley the queen of Rubeasts also had this appearance. Star the priest has received the help of God's messenger. She is chosen by God. Thousands upon thousands of people shouted. Chosen by God. Chosen by God. God's believers chased after the Rubeast's sides and rear, either holding their hands to their chests or loudly singing the Redlichia covenant. Like a group of madmen, they cheered exuberantly and shouted themselves hoarse. How sacred was the power of faith, yet it could be so ridiculous. Star, who was a sinner just days ago, had transformed into God's chosen one. She received everyone in the palace, becoming the new master of this God-descended city. Then those people all looked in awe at Polo beside Star, that terrifyingly indescribable mythical life, the messenger of the gods. Star, you stay with them while I go take a look inside the palace, said Polo. I've seen King Redlichia's palace, but I haven't seen the palace here yet. Polo loved liveliness and loved new things. But he hated such etiquette, feeling that these tedious rituals and the scheming for power were like shackles locking people in, making one feel heavy all over. Polo didn't even acknowledge the flattery from these nobles of the Yinsai kingdom and turned to leave. The nobles of the god-descended city looked at each other, growing fearful in their hearts. They didn't understand where they had slighted the messenger of God, but they didn't dare to ask that terrifying mythical life either. They immediately crowded around Star, the priest of God, this young woman destined to become the new pinnacle figure of the Yinsai kingdom. Victory had come too quickly, so quickly that it was somewhat beyond imagination. To the point that Star felt dazed and dizzied. She was engulfed by people's adulation and flattery in the palace, unfamiliar with such a scene. Chosen by God, this is a gift presented to you. Star looked at the stone tablet carried by two people. In the very center was depicted the King of Wisdom wearing a crown, with person after person kneeling before and below the king. The people around showed expressions of admiration and madness, watching the king bestow that divine power upon his own children. The inheritance of wisdom authority would exist forever. What is this? The other party excitedly opened his arms, fawningly flattering Star. The tablet of royal bloodline. This is a relic from the God-given era. The sacred scene of the great King Redlichia conferring authority to his sons is engraved on this, witnessed in person by the first-generation nobles of that time, carved by their own hands. Look, this is the ancestor of the Xylong family, King Redlichia's fourth son, he said, pointing to the tablet. Star had heard of this painting, but this was the first time seeing it. She touched it with her hand, as if seeing the scene from the era of King Redlichia, the era when trilobite men had not yet been expelled from the God-given land. The God-given era, such a distant term, so distant that Star felt she couldn't reach it. A strange thought suddenly welled up in her heart. For God, how long was such a long time? Was it long enough to forget the past? Or was it that everything was nothing more than a dream from last night? Not long after Star and the Samo family entered the God-descended city, the other two major royal bloodline families also arrived at the God-descended city. They brought King Eli's last son, as well as two Ru beasts. The first thing these two families did was present the Ru beasts to Star, while also bringing the shared idea of the royal bloodline families that a new king must be chosen, and this king could only emerge from the royal bloodline families. Star, only you are qualified to be the king of Yinsai. They declared. They said these words with their mouths, but their eyes glanced at Polo beside Star. This was the reason they presented the Ru beasts, and also the reason Star had to become king. Nothing could be stronger than the will of God, even if it was the uncertain will of God, because no one dared to speculate on the attitude of the gods. Star was stunned. Me. I am the high priest of the Sky Temple, servant of the gods. She was a bit flustered, but Polo was fearless. Then be both. Being king is just wearing a crown in addition to being high priest. Star looked at Polo. Can this be done? But Polo felt this was nothing, just a king of trilobite men. Why not be it? Star looked at Polo's smiling face and suddenly felt this matter wasn't as difficult as she had imagined. With Polo standing behind her, there was nothing to fear. The sky was clear, not a cloud for 10,000 miles. The people of the Yinsai kingdom who had come to watch the ceremony gathered in front of the palace of the god-descended city, blocked by a row of soldiers at the foot of the steps. They gazed at the lofty palace, and even though the figure they anticipated had not yet appeared, they were already so excited their blood was boiling. Rumble. The Ru beasts suddenly drilled out of the river channels on both sides of the palace, spraying two jets of water dozens of meters high, turning into rain falling down. Star, wearing a crown, walked out from the palace, step by step coming to the front of the steps, letting everyone see her. One after another, the royal bloodline families came out, followed by the nobles of the god-descended city. The lords of various city-states and towns. Star, we will forever submit under your scepter and crown, obeying the decree God has given you, they proclaimed. May you lead Yinsai towards an even farther and brighter future. Witnessed by thousands upon thousands, Star took the scepter passed down from King Redlichia and sat upon the throne belonging to the king. A congratulatory gift for the birth of the queen. Polo waved his hand, and dreamlike starlight turned into a sky full of flowers falling down. Illusory fireworks shot into the sky one after another from behind, exploding. Below the steps in front of the palace, row after row of trilobite men knelt down. Like waves extending into the distance. Queen, chosen by God. Quote. This scene was frozen in an instant. The queen sat high upon the throne, with the messenger of God in golden divine robes standing by her side, witnessing her sacredness and royal authority. Stone tablets recorded this scene, epics chronicled this eternally handed down chapter. 49. Star, having just become queen, was preparing to abolish the slave system and remove the fate that King Yesiel had imposed on those miserable people in the name and authority of God. Or rather, the curse that had lasted for generations. She had witnessed firsthand the wretched state of the slaves and was horrified by the unending misery that persisted across generations. She was preparing to amend the legal code. As long as it was stipulated in the code, henceforth, even if these slaves would forever bear the brand punished by the wisdom kingship, it would be forbidden for nobles and merchants to buy and sell them as goods or slaughter them like fish. Inside the palace, several ministers and a group of nobles were indignant. This is tradition, this is the law. It is recorded in the legal code compiled by the King of Wisdom. Slaves are sinners, they should be punished. Star was not intimidated by the actions of the ministers and nobles. She was not a stubborn person by nature, but when faced with the right thing to do, she had an indescribable persistence. Then amend the code. The minister firmly disagreed. That is the code set by the King of Wisdom, the law established by King Yesiel. Even as the current ruler, you should respect the will of the previous king. Star sat on the throne, her body motionless but her eyes unyielding. What if King Yesiel was wrong? The minister replied, how could King Yesiel be wrong? This was far more difficult than Star had anticipated. It was clear that almost all powerful figures and nobles were strongly opposed to Star's actions. Without slaves, who would tend to their fisheries? How would their bone tool workshops operate? Who would do the hard labor for their merchant caravans? Who would ensure and serve their luxurious lifestyles? The scene reached an impasse. But even if royal power had declined, it was not something that ordinary nobles could resist. Compared to Star, the ministers and power holders below her were more apprehensive and fearful. Someone stepped out from the crowd and knelt at the foot of the steps before the throne. Queen, I have obeyed your decree, but amending the legal code is not a simple matter. It requires summoning the scholars who compile the code to study it, and this all takes time. Star came from a royal bloodline family, the lofty Sky Temple. She knew that issuing a decree and implementing it were two different things. The nobles of the Yinsai kingdom had long learned to pay lip service while opposing in secret. But as long as the ministers yielded, she had taken the first step. At this moment, Star was very happy, feeling that she had accomplished a great deed. She joyfully went to find Polo, wanting to share her sense of achievement with him. The sunlight streaming through the window enveloped Polo, making him appear to radiate light. Polo was arranging stone chess pieces on the table. Seeing Star come in, he immediately turned his head, revealing a smile like the summer sun. Star, come quickly and look, this is a game passed on from the Samo City State, it's so fun. The queen took off her crown and sat beside Polo. Polo enthusiastically explained the rules of stone chess to Star, even fiddling with the pieces as he recounted how he had acquired them from a cunning merchant. Star also listened attentively. She had originally been eager to express the excitement in her heart, but upon hearing Polo's voice, she was no longer in such a hurry. It seemed that just being by his side gave her a sense of reassurance. When Polo finished speaking, Star smiled at him, her eyes narrowing. I told them today, I will abolish the slave clause of King Yesiel and remove it from the legal code. Polo looked at Star and stood up dramatically, praising her with an exaggerated expression. Star, I admire you so much, you did the right thing. But then he furrowed his brow and raised a finger, shaking it. But those people certainly won't give up so easily. Star, you must be careful of them. Having traveled in the Yinsai kingdom for so long, he was no longer as ignorant as before. Star was not afraid. She said in a serious tone. King Yesiel was wrong. As the priest of God, I should rectify his mistake. Turning the craftsmen who built the Sky Temple into slaves was his idea, not the will of God. Then she looked at Polo, and I'm not afraid of them, because I have you. Having said this much, Star felt something welling up in her chest, ready to pour out. She was shy yet excited, but she knew her choice. She also understood her heart. She stood up excitedly, looking at Polo's face. Polo, come on, stay by my side, I can share the kingship with you, my everything is yours. The innocent and romantic Polo stared blankly at Star, not understanding what she was saying. Until Star called out to him, Polo, I like you. Polo's face flushed crimson, he was at a complete loss for words. Ah, but I don't plan to stay here. Polo still wants to travel, to witness those miracles in this world, and. Polo stuttered, his mind going blank. He suddenly thought of a perfect reason, one that couldn't be refuted at all. I am the messenger of God, I must return to God's side. I came to seek the divine descent technique, I must fulfill God's mission. Star looked at Polo, then what? Will you come back? Afraid of commitment, Polo avoided Star's gaze. I don't know either. There are many matters in the temple, many of God's decrees that I need to. And, Star saw Polo's hesitation. He didn't want to stay by her side. He cherished his freedom and would not tolerate any constraints, even from her. Star felt a deep sense of shame and burning anger. Star no longer wanted to hear Polo's clumsy rejection. She took out a stone tablet and placed it on the table, angrily turning to leave. Your divine technique. This is the only thing you care about, the only thing you know. Now it's yours. Go, never come back. She had already completed it long ago, but fearing Polo would leave her, she had never taken it out. Polo opened his mouth, but in the end could only close it without saying a word. Star angrily walked towards the outside. She was waiting for Polo to call out to her or come forward to comfort her, but there was no movement behind her. She turned her head back, wanting to see Polo's actions, but she found only a patch of starlight in the air. And by the table, no shadow could be seen. Star immediately ran back, stopping by that table. The dreamlike starlight continuously dispersed and disappeared. Polo. Star called out Polo's name, but he had already vanished without a trace. She somewhat regretted her impulsive actions just now. She felt she had lost the most important thing. But she didn't express her regret out loud. Instead, she shouted towards the surroundings of the palace. If you left, then you left. I have Ru beasts, I am the queen of Yinsai. I'm not weak like before. I'm very powerful now. I don't need you. 50. Beneath the pyramid temple, the sea of blooming sun cups remained unchanged. The wandering child Polo returned to the realm of God, greeted as always by Shelley. The girl sat high on the steps, watching him and making that familiar gurgling sound of blowing bubbles. It was unclear whether she was truly welcoming him or just calling out from boredom. Many things had happened outside. Some people died, a new ruler emerged. For the Trilobite men, it was one era replacing another. Even Polo himself had changed, but here, nothing was different. Time seemed to stand still in this place. A powerful force separated the God-given land from the outside world, even cleaving time itself in two. Great God, Polo has returned. This time, God was not inside the temple. He stood within the side colonnade of the temple, gazing at the relief sculptures Red Lucia had carved for him long ago. Polo didn't know how many times God had viewed this scene. He hadn't quite understood before, yearning only for the fresh and unknown. Now, he vaguely comprehended. When he had people and things he cherished, those beautiful memories became his precious treasure. Polo knelt on the ground, looking up at God. For the first time, he was so quiet, just silently watching God's profile. You found the answer? God asked him. A smile appeared on Polo's face. The answer wasn't found by me. It was told to me by someone else. Polo continued, God, I met a girl, the one I told you about, the person with talent like a genius. Her name is Star, she is your priest and also the current queen of the Yinsai kingdom. Star perfected her consciousness projection divine technique. As for how to let you descend into this world, Star also pointed me in the right direction. Polo gestured animatedly, like an orator. The power of one person is fragile. One person cannot do it, but what if it's 10,000 people, 100,000, a million? Star found the answer for me, letting me know that power has no limit. If I can't do it, then I'll create a race. 1,000, 10,000 of me. Condensing a vast dream world, a realm of dreams that can hold you. Then God, you can descend into this world. As he spoke, his words gradually slowed. Polo sank into memories, recalling a certain person, a certain event. God looked at Polo. Lost in thought, Polo suddenly noticed God's gaze. It seems this journey has changed you quite a bit, God remarked. Your carefree white dream is starting to be tinged with color. Polo, tell me, what have you gained on this journey? And what have you lost? Polo raised his head to meet God's gaze. God, I don't know. I don't understand my own heart. But God told him, you already understand. You just don't want to lose your freedom. You don't want to face the fact that you've grown up. Polo, in this world, everyone gains something while simultaneously losing something else. If you're unwilling to give up anything, then you're destined not to obtain what you truly desire. The wind blew over the sea of flowers, stirring up waves and lifting Polo's golden robe. He drifted above the flower sea, circling around God. He loved the wind, yearned for the wind, just as he yearned for freedom. The weather is really nice today. God stood in the center of the God-given city, covered by sun cups, like a star from the heavens fallen to the mortal realm. Streams of white light flowed out from the deity's shadow, flowing towards the sky, overflowing in all directions. God looked at the constantly swaying sea of flowers beside him and spoke, Polo, what do you want to name your new race? Polo seemed to have already thought of it. He happily said, let's call them dream spirits. Fairies roaming in dreams, fantastical spirits guarding your garden. So ordinary, this didn't align with Polo's personality. God asked him, don't you want a more impressive name? Don't you want to use my name anymore? Polo recalled his conversation with God when he had just been born. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. While laughing, he also shook his head. Ignorance begets fearlessness. The name, God, is too heavy. Just by using your name, thousands upon thousands of people can be driven to their deaths. Everyone invokes your name, every matter is guided by you, every choice is your will. I can't bear it, and it's not what I want. I'm just a spirit of dreams, wandering in my fantastical sky. I only want the carefree existence of one person. At this point, Polo suddenly paused. Then he added with a grin, although, perhaps a few more friends would be nice too. God looked at Polo without speaking. He finally understood reverence. God placed his hand on Polo's head. His golden robe shook violently, then flipped upwards. Rings of dreamlike starlight spread out, expanding to a range of hundreds of meters. Polo's roots anchored into the earth, transforming into a giant sun cup. The head within the flower cup also gradually closed its eyes. The ruler of dreams fell asleep. Polo dispersed a portion of his dream authority mythical factors into the sea of flowers. Immediately, changes appeared among the densely packed sun cups in the flower sea. One after another, huge dream bubbles floated out, enveloping those sun cups. The golden flowers closed their blossoms, nurturing the spirits of dreams within. One by one, 7 or 8 dream spirits were born in succession, scattered in various corners of the flower sea. Flower buds bloomed. Little heads peeked out from the flower buds, curiously looking at this world. He. Laughter filled the air above the sea of flowers. The spirits of dreams released their power. This small surrounding area of the flower sea turned into a fantastical land between dream and reality. When they filled the God-given land, perhaps they would form a vast dream world. At that time, Yin Shen would be able to descend into this world from the crevices of time and space. The dreams of thousands upon thousands of dream spirits would surely be able to accommodate God's will. This place would become God's largest and most stable anchor point, the very incarnation of his will. Yin Shen looked at that giant sun cup and said to him, Polo, you have done exceptionally well, far exceeding my expectations. The sleeping Polo still had his eyes tightly closed, but his voice emerged from the dream. This is my promise, and also my repayment. It is you, God, who created me and guided the direction of my life. You allowed my mischief, tolerated my disrespect. Compared to everything you have given me, what I've done is merely trivial.